I want to switch gears just a little bit. I know there's a second piece to what you're doing that really, I think, is on the tip of everybody's tongue for collision owners. There's been a lot of battles on getting paid correctly, okay, or billing the customer direct and waiting for them to get reimbursed. And there's been a lot of, I think, unnecessarily chewing of the nails and like, should I even try that? I don't want to piss off all my customers. I don't want to drive them down the street. But there's a big part to what you do with getting paid correctly. So you want to dive into that?
So we can definitely talk about that and what a super bill is, the concept of a super bill, 100%. One of the things to reemphasize is it will never be our job to tell somebody how to run their business. So we work with the shops to develop how they want to get paid. And the first place we always stop is customer pays. Whispers truth so clear. That drive away the fear. Voice cuts through the noise.
Welcome to the Mind Wrench Podcast with your host, Rick Sellover, where minor adjustments produce major improvements in mindset, personal growth, and success. This is the place to be every Monday, where we make small improvements and take positive actions in our business and personal lives that will make a major impact in our success, next level growth, and quality of life.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mind Wrench Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Silver. Thanks so much for stopping in. If you're a returning listener and haven't done so already, please take a minute and click the follow or subscribe button and then rate and review the show. When you rate and review the show, the algorithms for Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and all the other platforms will see that it's valuable and show it to more people that have never seen it before. And hopefully it can help them too. I would really, really, really appreciate your help sharing this word with your friends and family as well. And if you're a brand new listener, welcome. I hope you find something of value here that helps you in your personal or professional life as well. Please make sure to click the subscribe or follow button so you never miss another episode. If you've been listening to the show for a while, or been on the receiving end of my daily quote of the day emails, or maybe just catch my posts on Facebook or LinkedIn, you know I'm all about the quotes, right? If you'd like to start receiving my quote of the day emails, there's a link in the show notes to sign up. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. Joining us on the Mind Wrench podcast this week is someone that doesn't actually have any real superpowers and doesn't wear a cape like Superman or Batman. But to the hard-working collision shop owners his company has helped so far, Sean Preston is indeed a superhero in his own right. In my 45-plus years in this industry, I have never seen anyone from the legal side of this trade kick down the door and start helping shop owners where they really need it most. Sean Preston, founder of Coverall Law, has been working hard to educate and work with auto body associations and shop owners with an intense passion to be part of the solution, to help keep them out of the darkest corners the repairers may see and proactively prepare them in case they someday end up there. So, without any further delay, let's get to that interview.
So let's welcome Sean Preston of Coverall Law to the show. Welcome, Sean.
Appreciate you, Rick. Thank you.
Just a quick little background, a couple points on Sean I thought was important was, he was trained by Special Forces when he was young. He's prosecuted white-collar crime. He's worked with family law. He's been all around the different avenues of law, and he's now the founder. Just 2 years ago, he founded Coverall Law specifically to help the collision industry, which is just fantastic. So thanks for all you do for us right now, Sean. Appreciate it. I know you're just getting going, but you've already done a lot of good. You've opened up a lot of eyes, and I know everybody wants to talk to you these days, right?
There's a lot of work to be done. Yeah, I mean, and it's been going on for decades. So, we got a boogie.
And that's the funny thing, too. So I wanted to share just a thought I had as I was preparing for this. I've been in this industry a long time, right? And we focused, like the last 2 decades, we focused a ton on protection, right? For our employees, for our workers, for ourselves in the shop. We focus on PPE, and we focus on things like safety glasses and gloves and paint suits and fresh air respirators and those kinds of things. And lately, last couple of years, we've also been really working on educating ourselves and preparing to be safe with EV repairs, right? So electrical hazard safety, those kinds of things. We've done a pretty good job with being proactive with protection for ourselves and our employees on the shop floor when we're fixing cars, right? But what about
Mhm.
proactive protection when it comes to our business, our livelihoods? So far, not so much, right? Collision repairs have really never given much thought to legal issues in our industries until that $42 million verdict for the John Eagle case in 2017, when it really became a stark reality that what we do to cars has some serious repercussions if they're not done right. The collision industry, in my opinion, has historically been reactive when it comes to disputes, whether it's with a customer or a carrier, court actions, lawsuits, all that stuff. We are definitely on our heels trying to defend most times without the full documentation we probably should have. And we're never in a leverage position with carriers, right? So, intro, Sean, like a superhero flying in to save the day, Sean has brought to the industry some much needed help. So, Sean, could you just give us a 50,000 foot background on how you ended up in collision?
So, my background's corporate law. I just always loved, business, and I grew up in a family that serves, small business owners. So, like a lot of the folks we work with that grew up 7 years old cleaning the shop floor. Yeah, I had the same, except it was an accounting office. Running the vacuum, cleaning the floor in an accounting office, and it was every day after school when I was 13. They're serving small business owners. So after the army, it was pretty natural school and stuff to go right back to this. And in law school, it was pretty clear that those kind of classes made a lot of sense for me. So I was top in my class in a number of classes that just made sense for business. So, we see it in other areas, this concept called the revolving door, right? I think we've noticed over the past at least 20 years that some of these, departments of insurance in each state are less and less helpful to the consumers. It can be really frustrating, and we say, my gosh, let's look at where these people used to work. Oh my gosh, they used to work in the insurance industry, and they're going to go back to the insurance industry after. That's called the revolving
Yeah.
door. I did the same thing. So I went to Delaware and said, all right, let me be an assistant attorney general and prosecute white collar crime. And that's when it was 2012. I told one of my mentors at DuPont, I said, we've got to find a way to take these best business practices and make them available to the small and medium-sized businesses that I grew up serving. So when the pandemic hit and we were living abroad as an international corporate attorney, came back to my hometown and spent a year at a small little firm, there, and we grew our family and relocated from Washington State to Massachusetts. I hit a deer. I hit a deer on the drive over. The first small business I met when I got to Massachusetts was a shop. They're an association member. And it didn't take long before my buddies at the shop were telling me some issues they were having.
Kind of shocking, wasn't it, when you start hearing what the insurance company does to them and how they get treated? It's just crazy.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head about being reactive, right? And so that's what it didn't take long to notice that every shop was being reactive. So it's, oh, darn, I got sued. Oh, man, I just got this certified letter. Or, oh, heck, I haven't got paid my whole invoice. And reactive in the legal sense is expensive, right? It's expensive in time and it is money. And my buddies got sued. There was no phone call, no demand letter, just, oh, by the way, you've been served with this lawsuit. I looked at it and I read it and I just said, like, this is bizarre because of my background in working in big companies, global 500 companies. I looked at it and I said, no company would sue for this. Like, I'd never seen, I didn't have any history of working with insurers. And this is, maybe 4 years ago now, 4 or 5, probably 4. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was like, this makes no sense. And so I dug into it for him, helped make it go away. Now you talk about protecting yourself. Unfortunately, like we couldn't, it wasn't worth fighting.
Right.
It was, it was suing somebody over $5,000. No company would do that. So we settled it for pennies on the dollar. But what I noticed is how hard that first year it was to serve collision shop owners. We had to come up with a new solution.
Right. To your point, nobody's going to bother with $5,000 from the collision shop side, right? Most owners, they do what they can. For decades, they've done what they can just to get the car done, get it out the door. They'll take a little less pay. They'll do a few things for free. That's just been normal business, which is not normal business, but in this industry, it has been normal business for decades. So, you said you've worked for large international big companies and stuff. They know their laws. They know how to get paid. They know what they're responsible for and what they don't, and what they're not. And this collision industry is definitely a different animal. So we really need someone with your perspective here, kind of enlightening some of these people that, hey, the John Eagle case, that wasn't a fluke. Okay. I'm surprised it took that long for something like that to happen. So going forward, I really feel that, shops should be educating themselves and protecting themselves. Like I said, you can protect your employees from getting hurt. What about you? If you're not protected, your employees aren't going to matter because you won't have a business anymore if the suit is big enough, right? So,
Yeah.
I saw you and Sean, just so the audience knows, I met Sean probably, I think, last fall in Tennessee at an association meeting. And he was on a panel with Mike Anderson and Dave Luer, and it was great. And after I was listening to some of the things he said, man, I got to talk to this guy. He'd make a great guest on the podcast, and I think this industry needs to hear from him. So a little slow to get this done, but I know you've talked with a lot of people, and you're making a difference out there. And I saw you out at ASP in Illinois earlier this year. You talked about the 3 daily mistakes shops make. Is that something you can kind of touch on and give us an idea? I think most of the shops don't know what they don't know, right? So kind of lead us down that path with what those 3 daily mistakes are.
If you're running a collision shop, whether second generation, third generation, or original owner, grinding every day, putting out fires, chasing KPIs, working in rather than on the business, and wondering why progress still feels slower than it should, let's take a little pause right here. As a longtime industry supplier, performance coach, and host of this podcast, I've worked inside this industry for over 4 decades, and I've learned a few things the hard way. Tools and tactics absolutely matter, but mindset drives everything. How you think shapes how you lead, how you hire, how you grow, and how you show up when things get messy. That's where one-on-one coaching makes the difference. You get focused conversations, real accountability, and guidance tailored to you and your shop, not generic cookie-cutter advice. The collision repair business has changed dramatically in the last few years. The technology, the tools, the equipment needed to repair today's new vehicles. Customer expectations have varied by generation. OEM certifications and repair procedures. ADAS calibrations, electric vehicles, and the ever-growing national technician shortage. It's a lot, isn't it? It can be absolutely overwhelming and very challenging on where to focus first, right? If only I had someone who could help me find clarity in all the chaos. If only there was someone that could help guide me through the changes I need to make so I could create a successful business and increase my net revenue. If only I had a coach that could help me without getting in my way or trying to run my business for me or costing me a fortune. This is where I can help. The goal is simple: help you make consistent improvements, build sustainable culture, gain better profitability, and shave years off the learning curve. If you're open to adjusting how you think and how you lead, book a free 15-minute discovery call with me right now. No sales pitch, no blue sky promises, just an honest conversation to see if it's a fit. You have absolutely nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Secure a spot now.
That was a really cool undertaking for me and my team. So it was about a year ago at the Northeast show. I was watching a panel, and there was a couple things that the folks said on the panel that just blew my mind. I was like, these guys don't know what they don't know. So I just really couldn't believe the things that they were saying, and how, like, just, I don't know if naive's the right word, or just like this, but a lack of perspective on the legal issues that they were facing in so many areas that these shops have, right? Because we had our, flagship program, the Forever Forms, is where we start. We own those terms and conditions, but there's so much more that needs to be done. And so, gosh, I wish I had the slides to show you right now, because we went through like hundreds of problems. And with those hundreds of problems, that we would like, here's the solutions, and then we would look at problems for each one of those. Well, what's the team at the shop going to say? Why do they think this won't work? What all needs to be done? And we came up with, I think it was somewhere around, I want to say 40 to 50 areas
Wow.
that you needed to fix.
Wow, that's a lot.
And so this is a future solution for us, right? So we've got our, the flagship program, the Forever Forms. Then we're going to make an announcement this year at SEMA for our next solution. And then ultimately would be this one. And we call it the freedom formula. If you did all of these things in these 3 areas, that would solve everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the 3 areas were the ultimate legal high ground. And then it was, stakeholder management. So the ultimate legal high ground is not just owning the terms and conditions, owning your pricing, right? How you set up your organization, your employee documents, so that your people they got to do the right things for the right reasons. The stakeholder management, that's where we want the insurers. We want every team member at the shop and your customers. They need to all be singing the same tune of a safe and proper repair. And then the third one is about collecting cash, and it's about cash flow. And you need to have an SOP for how you guys are going to collect it. You need to know how you're tracking it. And so if I solved all those areas, we could really, make the shop, I guess, impenetrable. But when I want to highlight for the shops what they've been missing, it was those 3 daily mistakes. And you're not protected, you're not getting paid, and you're not empowered to do the repair the right way. So that's been our big goal, is that, basically, how do I solve everything?
Right. Yeah. In 3 easy steps, right? It's not going to be 3 easy steps.
Yeah.
But those, and I would agree, in my time in this industry, I've seen, shades of all 3 of those things on a daily basis. So let's go to process. Okay. So, proactive protection, doing OEM repairs, have a certain process, right? And if you're on a DRP contract, which a lot of shops still are, they may spell out a different process, right? And then regular repairs that aren't DRP, that your friends down the street or some family members or people that in other businesses bring in their vehicle to get repaired. Is there a way to cover all these with what you'd call safe and proper repair for these scenarios? Because I think process is probably our biggest enemy, and I know there's been a lot of focus on that right now. There's a lot of people, a lot of associations. They have panel discussions about process. For the average Joe body shop that goes, "Hey, I really need to protect myself. What should I do first?" Does that seem like a good first step? Is figuring out what your process should look like, and is there a way to shape that or form that or make something that's a standard in your shop that at least address all 3 of those scenarios: OEM, DRP, and regular walk-in cash customers or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, it starts with an SOP, right? It starts with your team and how do they in process. I mean, right from beginning to end, how do they take care of that job? And right at that beginning, you got to own the terms and conditions, right? So what's happened for decades is, insurers can cost shift, right? Sure. They can say, "Hey, I'm not gonna pay you to, I can't pay you to replace the, that quarter panel, but I throw a couple more hours on the hood." Dude, they can do whatever they want, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're bill payers.
Doing that forever.
So they can do that. The shop cannot do that.
Yeah.
The shop should never adjust their sheets to match the insurers, right? They shouldn't be, their final invoice has to be 100% accurate for what they did. And so that's how we've kind of gotten by. So then the real question becomes, how do we make it to where we make it crystal clear that the shop is the authority? The shop is the one who says how this gets done, right? The shop's the doctor, right? The John Eagle case pointed that out.
Yeah. That kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Because people don't like conflict, because people are, but there's not a single way to do it. That's one of the big things for coverall law, is we say it'll never be our job to tell you how to run your business. And even in my past life, that was never my job to tell the CEO of Rolls-Royce how to run that business, right? My job was his office next to mine, him barking down my neck saying, "Do this, that," and my job is how can we make that happen? And too many, there's only a dozen attorneys that have really been, serving this industry. And what I've heard them say is, yeah, you can't do that. Oh, that won't work. Or you can't do this. I'm like, no, you really have to change your perspective. If you're going to be a corporate lawyer and say, how do we make that happen?
I would agree. So, with that, and I'm shocked. I didn't know there was a dozen lawyers in this that serve this industry. I know of one. I thought there's just one. So,
Oh, I meant over the last, 30 years, right?
yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Mm-hmm. Well, there's my predecessor in Mass, Connecticut's got a guy. What's happened historically, and it's kind of fun. So I thought about this when you brought up John Eagle too, is you've got these personal injury lawyers.
mhm.
And so historically, PI lawyers have said, boy, I wonder if I can get clients hanging out with these body shops. And so you've had, like a dozen that have tried it. And I think what they find out eventually is that you're not going to get good PI cases from a body shop. The PI
Right.
case you want, where somebody lost an arm or something, that
Different
vehicle's
customer.
not seeing a body shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different customer. They're going somewhere else. And then the only reason I think that John Eagle took so long is probably, I would say, due to some laziness on the part of PI lawyers, right? So the shops see what I think they might call laziness in lawyers not wanting to learn the property damage side, looking
Right.
at a claim for a shop and saying, you know what, this isn't worth pursuing, not helping the customers because, like, dude, yeah, you got short paid $1,200. Nobody, no lawyer's going to take that case.
Right.
But those PI lawyers that want, dude, I want to write demand letters. I got a process here, and I just collect, I collect medical bills, and then I send a demand letter, and I beat up the insurer, and that's how I get paid. I don't know that until the John Eagle case, I don't know that they took the time to say, oh my gosh, I wonder if that vehicle was ever repaired. I wonder
Right.
if I can get at the insurance policy covering the shop and the shop's liability. It was there under their nose the whole time.
Just didn't look. They just didn't
Yeah.
look. Amazing.
Most of them still aren't looking, except Tracy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met him and listened to his presentation as well.
Hmm.
So with this kind of led you down the path of creating this what we call forever form, right? So can you explain a little bit what this forever form is and what it does?
Hmm. So, I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but coverall law was officially started a little over 3 years ago. So I hopped in with another firm that fought insurance companies, mostly towing, and did towing stuff nationwide. And towing made sense, right? There's an $80,000, tractor trailer rollover. You're going to
Yeah.
hire a lawyer to chase 80 grand. But again, you get a $1,200 short pay, a $2,000 short pay. Like, it does not make a sense. It doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
For grabbing a lawyer for that. So, started coverall law. I said, boy, we've got to figure something out. Don't know how it's going to be. Then getting involved with the association was step one, and the forever forms ended up being the tool we needed in order to take that step. So every dollar coming through a shop represents unlimited liability.
Absolutely.
And I, in my background, had built customer agreements for a couple of companies. So I'm big on contracts, number one in my class, and contracts are really kind of one of my big specialties. From there, I said, since every dollar coming through the shop represents that unlimited liability, we have a right, and I would say a responsibility, to own the terms and conditions of every dollar. So the forever forms combine three things. That's how we own those terms and conditions. It's that Fortune 500 level development, number one.
Mhm.
Number two, they are being tested right now every day at 70 locations. And then number three is that they're updated for life. That's why they're the forever forms. So we were in court 2 days last week on the forever forms, and got to watch how the court looked at them, what they thought of them, how they sliced and diced them. And then from there, we get to update them to the benefit of everyone that's on the program and anyone that comes on the program in the future. Those are the things that cover all. That's our responsibility. Our job, we want to focus on, we want the shops to focus on what they do so we can focus on what they don't.
Right. So you're
Mhm.
actually getting live feedback on those now in court cases. And-
Yeah.
Okay. And you see that
Mhm.
working in the shop's behalf, right? That's awesome.
100%. Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So what does a forever form include?
So it wasn't just me, because I was so new to the industry. I knew a lot of the best practices. There were a lot of the things that I picked up over years working in in corporate law.
Hmm.
But it was a group of 7 attorneys, myself included, familiar with the industry, put all of our work product together. Our wish list, after 7 months of putting that together, was over 40 pages.
Oh,
Now, we don't expect, it was just like everything you need, nothing you don't. This is everything we'd have. And I'm like, cool. I don't think we're going to be asking our customers to sign a 40-page document. They're going to feel like they're taking out a second mortgage on their house.
right.
So I did the final drafting of it. I drafted it down to 3 pages. Everything you need, nothing you don't. These are state specific. So we started in
Okay.
Massachusetts, where I live now, where my wife is from, and where we're raising our kids.
Mhm.
And so it's 3 pages, everything you need, nothing you don't. Actually, 9 forms in one. And since everybody in the shops who'd come to me was just they were dead in the water every time they came to me, because this is a highly regulated industry.
Oh, yeah.
When you are not compliant with every single thing that you're supposed to be doing, you're dead in the water. That's a Consumer Protection Act violation. Our answer at my old firm to collision shops was the same every single time. It was, pull out your checkbook. We got to make this go away.
Yeah.
So from that, we said, look, I want you compliant in one signature. I remember my old firm in a court case trying to show it was compliant, and it took 13 different exhibits. Here's a picture of the wall. Here's a piece of the file. Here's all these different things to say why my folks don't have what's called unclean hands, right? That,
Okay.
you shouldn't even be here in court because you didn't do something right. I said, nope, I can do that in one exhibit. And, knock on wood, since we released the Forever Forms a little over 2 years ago, maybe almost 2.5 years ago, coming up on, since then, compliance has not been challenged a single time where there's a Forever Form. You can see right there everything you're supposed to
Wow.
do,
That's
state by state.
incredible.
Yeah. I mean, and now, so to grow the mission, we've actually just opened up our 11th state. So those
11
drafts
states.
just went
Okay.
out. Yeah. And at any given time, we have up to 5 people for coverall law working compliance. So it's something that we take very seriously. It's where you start, right? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Right.
So we got to make sure that we are protected, number one, right? Then it's empowered, then it's paid, right? Just making sure step by step, pants first, then shoes. All right.
Right.
Yeah.
So how are you choosing which states you work on next? Do you have a map on that, or is it just where the need seems more urgent, that's where you're going to go?
So for the initial Forever Forms, we took on all that investment. And so it was a little bit tough. It was about 1.5 years ago where we saw, oh man, there's really a demand for this. And I say, here's what we're doing in Massachusetts. Here's how it's working. And people are like, yes, that is what we need in other states. We didn't know how to do it. At first, we kind of toyed around with, all right, I need like 10 shops like gathered up in order for it to really be worthwhile for the investment. And I said, we didn't do that in Massachusetts. We kind of took a step out there. So in any state where somebody signs up and says, hey, raise their hand, and they make, their investment, we match it, and that becomes the next state. So we're not, requiring someone to get it together. We know that these shops have serious needs, and they got serious needs right now.
Yeah. Every state does. Every state does. So it's just going to be on demand.
Yeah. It's so interesting to see. I was just talking with somebody last night at dinner about this, about how each state has different little issues. Like these have developed state by state in a really fascinating way.
Yeah. Isn't that
Mhm.
crazy to think a standard type of business like repairing an automobile has so much variety in how it gets done, how it gets looked at, how it gets regulated, what the
Mhm.
issues. It's just, I
Right.
don't think you see that with, a bank or a
Mhm.
manufacturer. I mean, they're all fairly consistently, regulated and
Mhm.
run. But man, this is it's a unique bee's nest, I think. So,
Mhm.
um, but I love this forever form idea. And at some point, I want to see what one looks like just so I can get it in my
Oh,
head,
definitely.
what that looks like. But that's awesome that you're doing that. So shifting gears just a little bit. So the forever form, that's a great way to protect you. And that's something done at intake. So that's your intake form if you're a shop owner or
Yeah.
manager. That's the only thing that you're going to present to a customer before they're going to hand you the keys to their vehicle, right?
It's 3 pages, everything you need, nothing you don't. One of those pages, typically the third, is the only one that goes to the insurance company.
Okay.
But it covers a ton of stuff. So there's a pretty sophisticated shop owner out in California. California is the second state that we did.
Okay.
So
Makes
Massachusetts
sense.
has their own specific issues. It's and their issues is labor rate is the big one.
Yeah.
And
I
then
talk to Lucky a lot,
California,
so I know.
right? Yeah. So we actually have our labor rate case on the Forever Forms is set for trial later this summer, and so
Oh,
it
no kidding.
benefits every member, right? Where we just say, according to these terms and conditions, the rate's the rate. Let's stop playing these games. And that is where we really start having fun, is being able to pick the case that we want to take. We get to do this now on our terms now. And it's just, that's the whole point, is you got to flip the game. But California, highly regulated state, the BAR. And so we took that on, me and it was two other folks did California for Coverall Law. And it took about 5.5 months to put that together. The shop owner had been through 2 or 3 other law firms to develop forms in the past. And I set aside 2 hours for us to sit down and read. And we got them down to 3 pages as well, right?
Okay.
3 pages. But it took some creativity there, because it's actually 2 different documents, because they want to do a teardown or inspection agreement in addition to the authorization. But we still got it to 3 pages.
Okay.
I set aside 2 hours to read those 3 pages. But Rick, there is so much meat in there. And there's each clause is really designed to cover 2 or 3 different things. We spent 4.5 hours only reading 3 pages.
Oh.
All right. And there's a lot of, this is not tiny little print. This is not white. I mean, these are easy on the eyes. I was 3 hours in, and I asked him, I said, hey, I just want to take the temperature of the room, man. What do you think here? Right? Because we've been working on these things for months. And he said, you're covering things that I've never considered. He's just like, I'm blown away. And I was like,
Awesome.
I was like, can I quote you on that? So I was like, I wrote it down, because that is our job. That's our job.
Yeah.
I think our team's up to maybe 6 people now. We're about to post for another attorney. But, like I said, there's only been a handful of attorneys, mostly guys, 1 or 2 ladies who have tried to serve this industry. It's important that we change the game. It's important that Coverall Law continues to invest in itself and continues to grow the mission. That's how we're doing it.
Absolutely. And John, I can't tell you enough how important that is to this industry, to have somebody like you in Coverall Law spending the time focusing and actually having a plan of growth as you go to better serve the industry. It's really unprecedented so far. So I love what you're doing. I want to switch gears just a little bit. I know there's a second piece to what you're doing that really, I think, is on the tip of everybody's tongue for collision owners. There's been a lot of battles on getting paid correctly, okay, or billing the customer direct, and waiting for them to get reimbursed. And there's been a lot of, I think, unnecessarily chewing of the nails and should I even try that? I don't want to piss off all my customers. I don't want to drive them down the street. But there's a big part to what you do with getting paid correctly. So you want to dive into that? Maybe explain that. Superheroes,
absolutely.
Super
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. No, that's a good point. So we can definitely talk about that and what a super bill is, the concept of a super bill, 100%. One of the things to reemphasize is it will never be our job to tell somebody how to run their business. So we work with the shops to develop how they want to get paid. And the first place we always stop is customer pays. Okay. Now we all agree that the customer should not be out any more than their deductible, if applicable. Right.
That's why they have insurance, right?
Yeah. Right. And that's their expectation. That's our understanding as well.
Yeah.
But but what the shop can do is say, hey, the insurer's taken a little longer than usual. I know you want your car back, right? If you want to pay that difference, we'll do anything we can to help you make sure that you get reimbursed, because the reality is the shop must be paid. Hard stop.
Right.
the customer must be reimbursed, right? If they're going by insurance. And so those are two different things, right? You're in
Yes.
business to make money. You need to get paid,
Yes.
right? The customer's file, that's their claim. That's not yours unless we do some other magic there. But it's their claim and they got to get reimbursed. So when you send somebody a super bill, that is a concept in insurance that is used in other areas of insurance, right?
Okay.
Automotive repair, property damage, the small dollar kind of property damage in automotive repair has just kind of been beaten like the redheaded stepchild for decades.
Really?
And absolutely, it's a profit center, for
Yeah.
insurers, and and even the folks at the insurance company, like they're indoctrinated into it as well. They don't realize that what they're doing is against the law. That's why we have to go to court and we have to say, sorry, this is against the law. But the first step when it comes to getting paid, have the customer pay you, all right? And then you give them three things. Okay, the first is a paid in full invoice, all right? So now they're showing the insurer, hey, I paid more than my deductible. You need to fully adjust this claim. That means you need to address this. The second thing is all the stuff that was done on the car. Here's the latest research, right? And those are the OE procedures, right? This is the latest research that says this is why all those things were done, right? If I didn't have that loss event, if I didn't have that claim, if I didn't have to go to that shop, none of that stuff would have had to happen. But I did it and I paid for it, right? You paid some, I paid the rest. The third thing is evidence. Evidence that each one of those things was needed and evidence that each one of those things was done, right? So those are the before and after photos. That's the documentation. Oh yeah, we R&I'd that fender. Here's what here's what that looks like. Here's why we had to do it. Sorry, that wasn't repairable, right? Because the OE says that when the paint breaks, that at that point you are not filling it with mud and and telling it to have a good life. Like that's not going to be it.
So that actually circles back to the SOPs when we talked about process, right? So if you're going to use a super bill, you better be documenting and doing all the things correctly, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then your SOPs, your employee handbook, there's some really good folks out there that will come into your shop and help you with a handbook, right?
Yeah.
And maybe someday, I don't know if we'd ever do that, future as we continue to grow, or if that's something that we'd outsource because there are capable folks out there doing it. But you basically, in the best way possible, you want to tie your employees' hands. You help them out, right? So that just like an insurance adjuster will come in and say, dude, can't pay for that, man. My boss will not let me.
Yeah.
Your folks need to say, like, dude, I can't do an unsafe repair. Like, I
my boss won't let
literally
me.
am not allowed, right? Like, boy, if only I could put them in a death trap. I'd love to, but, I just can't.
I hear you.
Yeah, right. Sorry to disappoint.
No, I love the concept of that super bill, and I think that's something the industry's needed for a long time. I mean, I've seen invoices where it's got a couple things on there. It doesn't really explain what got paid for. Then I've seen ones that are very detailed, and there shouldn't be that gap. It should be this is the only way you can invoice a customer. It's just like you get anything else done professionally, usually you get a detailed invoice, right? I don't know why for whatever reasons we haven't done that, but it'll just drive the importance for shops to really start, thinking about doing that. So I was going to ask you too, we talked about having a playbook a while back. We were talking about something. You said, something that's really important is that shops should have a playbook. And what did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, a playbook can apply to any number of areas of the business. The first one that we work on when it comes to getting paid is something that I borrow from my time in the Army, which is PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency, right?
Okay.
And so the best thing that I can give to shops is options, right? As a business owner, you never want to feel like you're painted in the corner. Like that's what sucks.
Yes.
And it's never my job to tell someone how to run their business. I want to give them options. And that's the biggest thing that they need.
Awesome. Love that. With what you're doing, and the difference that it's making and what you're seeing, how badly this industry really needs a legal look at their business. Why do you think no other lawyers have ever looked at the collision industry? Just because they feel it's a dirty industry and there's no money to make there and these shop owners will never do what we want them to do? Or do you any concept or idea why you're really the first one in?
So the traditional law firm, the traditional law firm model does not work for this industry. And so I don't think that attorneys think it's a dirty industry. There are a couple that feel that, the industry is of ill repute. That's one of the things that's important to emphasize, for coverall law is the requirements for anybody working with coverall law for, because we only serve shops. We don't do anything else.
Right.
But you've got to match our values. Quality, number one, integrity, number two, and mission, number three. And so you have, like, we've removed a shop from the Forever Forums before for
Oh, no
playing
kidding.
games. They weren't committing fraud, but they were flirting with it. And
Really?
and I said, here's your money. I said, I'm sorry, you're not a good fit at this time, because we don't have to play. I tell my other attorney friends, I say, dude, I've got the easiest job in the world because my clients are just right. But the traditional law firm model, to answer your question, they cannot make money in the traditional law firm model. So we had to have a hybrid. Now, this is something that I was inspired with in Europe. So things are done differently in Europe. This is a highly regulated industry, the practice of law. We are the most highly self-regulated industry in the world, at least so I was told in law school.
Right.
But other professionals, they regulate themselves as well. So like for doctors, the same kind of thing. Take away somebody's license for doing the wrong thing. Dentists is the same thing, right?
Yep.
But with that, I've been working already for years. Before I hit that deer, I'd already been working for years on breaking the traditional law firm model. So that's what
Okay.
coverall law is designed to do. So anyone that is working with coverall law, there's no surprise bills. There's no billable hours for calling and talking to us.
Right.
We have a very different model. And so I think the real key to figuring out how to serve this industry was to be creative enough to figure out, how can I keep the lights on and make sure that my kids don't starve with me serving this industry? Yeah.
Yeah. Been managed to do that so far? I haven't seen a picture of your kids. I mean, are they thin?
Right. No, I mean, they're like, we're talking like East African thin. Like, it's bad. It's real bad. The duck eats fine though. Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad it's working out. So as I got to wrap this up pretty soon here. So as we pare this thing down, what would be if I had to say, let's give me 3 of your top takeaways that a customer should go back to a shop with after listening to this and really focus on the most important things he should focus on right now.
Yeah. I would say, to any shop, I don't want you to be the cheapest. I want you to be the best. Right. So not all shops are created equal. I think finding a shop that is willing to invest in itself is going to be an indicator that's a good shop. And any business that invests in itself needs to get a return on that investment. Right. So that's the way business works. You get an ROI.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I look at. And then just absolute clarity with the insurance process and a willingness to ask why or why not. Oh, we don't pay for that. Why?
Right.
Oh, just because other shops don't charge that. Why? The 5 whys. Get down and
Keep
deep
digging
into this. Yeah, because I mean, to be honest, I'm just not satisfied. That doesn't make sense to me. Why? You know?
No,
And then,
I love that.
and I love, a shop that is willing to educate you. I recommend shops. I mean, throw a phone on a selfie stick so you can be in the frame, walk around the car, explain to your customers what a one-time use part is.
Yeah.
And then have the insurer trying to explain why they think they should use it 2 times.
Right.
Like, it's kind of the name. That's a one-time use part. You trying to short me 80 cents? What's happening?
Yeah. I've seen a couple of our industry friends doing that too, which is awesome. So
I love it.
I think a lot more of them need to, but yeah, the ball is rolling slowly, but the ball is rolling. So I love that.
It's part of stakeholder management, right? That's stakeholder management.
Yeah.
That's getting everybody on the same page, right? And in any conversation, in any debate, the first person that can frame what it is we're talking about has already won.
Yeah. And ultimately the end user, the consumer, wins when they do that. So, because they're usually the one that, a shop may have lost a couple $1,000s on a repair, and a technician didn't make enough money, what he should have made for what he did. But in the end, when the job's not done correctly, when it's not paid for correctly, the end user really suffers. He got a less than correct repair. He's
Yeah.
got maybe some used parts in where he should have had OEM parts or
Hmm.
aftermarket parts or whatever. So ultimately, I know
Right.
the insurance doesn't really care about the consumer. They just like their yearly.
Bottom line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they want their yearly investments from every consumer, but they don't really care about them. And unfortunately, it can sometimes make the shop look like the bandit when they really aren't. So,
Hmm.
two more questions. And this one I ask every once in a while to someone I'm interviewing. What's your greatest lesson you've ever learned?
Hmm. That's a good one. The greatest lesson I've always learned. Um, Action, just that, it's the two most important things, right? Attitude and effort. But man, does effort just beat anything else. Being willing to come back, you know, being willing to just get smacked down and say, that sucked. Let's do it again, you know,
It's awesome. I
and
love that.
man, yeah, I
I
mean,
love it.
I'll tell you, it's not fun beating your head against the wall.
No.
But when I started coverall law, remember I said I didn't know how we were going to win, but I had an idea that if we did this and only this, we had to win eventually. I cannot lose if I do not quit. And so just keep going. When I go to court, what I'm saying to the judges is I say, Judge, if we're wrong, then can you tell me why my client shouldn't be in business? Right? Because that's where that goes. We don't need to do things, operating at a loss, like that's silly. I've seen shops that from month to month, they don't know if they're going to turn a profit. That's insane,
I know. I
right?
know. It's no way to have a business. That's not
Well,
really a business. That's a
when
charity.
you have such thin margins that a single mistake on a job means that job's operating at a loss, something is wrong.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. No, that's excellent. And thanks for sharing that, John. I appreciate that. So before I let you go, what's next for Coverall Law? What's in the future plans for you guys?
So we are going to be at SEMA this year. So we've got two things at SEMA. One is we're going to do a presentation on the 3 daily mistakes, right? And it really expands out there. It'll be me and Tim Roenick. And we're going to talk about those 3 daily mistakes and really dig into the details of them, certain issues that actually cross the line of several of more than one of those areas.
Okay.
And then you're not going to want to miss the Ideas Collide Summit at SEMA.
Okay.
I loved it. I loved it last year, and we've been invited there too. So we'll have an announcement there as well with our next solution. And I have an accounting and finance background in addition to corporate law. So we've got our next big solution, and it has to do with your numbers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to see that. I will be at SEMA supporting Garmat as usual. And I'll see if I'd love to be able to break away for the Ideas Collide. I missed it last year, and I know there's some really good stuff happens at Ideas Collide. So I'm looking forward to that. So I want to thank you, Sean, for your time and all that you've shared with us today. It's fantastic. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate what you do for this industry. And just keep doing what you're doing, brother. Keep helping. You're making a massive impact and I think that's why we're all here, is to make a positive impact wherever we can. And I want to say thank you to listeners for joining us today. Hopefully you get something out of this that you can take back to your shop and really think about and start implementing some change within your own organization. I'll leave contact information for Sean and for Coverall Law, so you can reach out, connect with him. If you got questions, he's an easy guy to get a hold of when he's not busy, with his cape and his mask, being a superhero and flying around town. Feel free to reach out and pick his brain. And if you can get him to, invest in your state, that's where he goes, where the demand is. So hopefully some of my Michigan friends will get the ball rolling here so we can get them in our state too. So I think he could help a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But thank you so much, Sean. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Sean Preston, and I really hope you found some value here. And maybe it sparked some ideas about changes you can make in how your shop operates and gets paid for what you actually do. Feel free to reach out to Sean and Coverall Law for more information. I'll leave his contact information in the show notes. If Sean is speaking anywhere near you at a conference or association meeting, be sure to check him out. Well, that's all I had for you today. Thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate your support, and I hope you have a great week. I can always be reached at www.ricksillover.com, where you can find all my social media links, podcast episodes, blog posts, and much more.